Surprise, it's an early Fragments of Silicon.
Welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon, the Daylight Interviews. All right, joining us this week are Andreas and Carl-Henrik of Bitwav Games.
Hi, nice to meet you all.
Hi there.
Likewise. It's good to have you on the program. Right, so how we like to start things here is we like to get to know the people behind the games, the studio, and all that business. And we start our journey by asking this particular question. What got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Well, I feel like I've been programming games since the dawn of time. I started in the European demo scene, and kind of working in games was like the next step. So I joined in 1994 at Funcom and started programming a bunch of Sega Mega Drive games, and yeah, it's been rolling since then. So Andreas?
Yeah, I'm less impressive, to be honest. I started my journey back in 1997, I think. I got an NES from my mom. With Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt, and I instantly fell in love. And here I am today, working with the community at Bitwav.
Yeah, fairly standard, I think, entry points in terms of discovering the passions, and I suppose fast forwarding to the present, or the near present, as it were, how did you both end up at Bitwav Games?
Yeah, we actually worked together before.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, so we're both from Thunderful. I worked at the publishing part at Thunderful as community manager for 2.5 years. And then I got to know Niklas Isternes, who is the founder of Bitwav. And he asked me if I wanted to join because he had some cool stuff coming up. And yeah, I jumped on the train, so to speak.
Yeah, and I was working at Thunderful, and my friend at higher up in Embracer asked me, "Hey, you love these Toaplan games? Can you work on them?" And then he introduced me to Niklas and Bitwav, and I signed on to do these games basically.
Oh, neat. What did you all work on at Thunderful?
Oh, I was actually like from the beginning of the Thunderful publishing part. So my first game that I worked on was a game called Hellfront Honeymoon. And then I worked on Ghost Giant, SteamWorld Quest, Lonely Mountains Downhill, Say No More. And I was also part of the crew that announced Planet of Lana. And I also, besides the Thunderful titles, I also helped out on the Rising Star Games catalog. So I was involved in launching the Premonition 2, for example.
Yeah, and I worked on Lost in Random together with the EA Originals. And then continued on to an unannounced project before I moved here.
Okay, and how long have you two been with Bitwav Games?
I joined the studio summer of 2021, and you joined like half a year after me, right?
6 months after you.
Yeah, so we've been around for a couple of years now.
Okay, that's a fair amount of time. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how old Bitwave Games itself is.
It's really old,
Yeah,
but it's not so old.
exactly. So the studio was founded in 2013 under the name Retroid Interactive. And from at the start, the studio was more like a hybrid between game development and consultants. So the company used to like help out companies like Volvo, for example, with consultants. But in 2022, we realized that we needed a fresh start for all the cool stuff coming up. So we decided to rebrand the company to Bitwave. So the studio itself is almost 10 years old, but the name Bitwave is 1 year old.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Especially considering what you've been working on recently. Though before we get to that, I want to talk about the Embracer Group, because Bitwave is joined the Embracer free mode, if I'm remembering correctly, last year.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and I'm wondering what precipitated this in joining.
Yeah, you know, as a small studio, it's really hard to succeed. But like fortunately, Niklas got in touch with Martin Lindell at Embracer, and as Carl-Henrik mentioned, the Toaplan games. So one thing led to another, and they decided that they wanted to have a cool retro-focused studio, and we joined them.
Yeah, it's really an opportunity both for Embracer and for us.
Yeah,
because they were looking for someone that was really into retro games and like on a broader scale, and we could really use the support that they can offer.
Okay. Yes, I suppose that makes sense. And how has the relationship been since you joined back in August?
I would say it's been awesome. They are very supportive, and they also let us do our own thing without like interfering. So they're just like supporting and helping out with contacts and bringing us cool stuff to work on, basically.
Yeah. And we're supposedly tight knit, that we can just talk to the executives at Embracer sometimes for various purposes, and that feels like a lot closer than I ever felt at, for example, Activision when I worked there for like 8 years.
Yeah, like for being such a big company, it's quite flat. Everyone is very easy to reach out to, especially like within the free mode group, I would say, because we have a really close relationship with the other companies. Like with Toaplan, we're working very close with Tatsujin.
Right.
So that's really, really cool. Yeah,
Tatsujin is a company that owns the Toaplan license, and they're also owned by Embracer in the free mode group.
Right. And I assume this communication extends to like limited run games.
Yeah. We were talking to them as well, even though we're not working on any projects together. But it's nice to have like that kind of knowledge within reach as well if we were to like publish anything physical in the future. So it's a really good situation for us.
I just wish you could publish actual arcade machines.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Maybe sometime in the future. Now, does this interrelationship extend beyond the free mode group? Like, do you speak to various organs of, say, Gearbox or PlayOn, or
Yeah, it's mostly at like a CEO level that CEOs talk to each other.
Yeah. So
and they meet up at like EDC and things. So I don't know exactly what their plans are, but I know they're talking to various groups like Asmodee and Limited Run and all that.
And I think it's really nice to note also that when we were to like announce the acquisition of Bitwave back in August, we got like a ton of help from a PR agency called Sandbox Strategies that are also owned by Embracer. So there's like a lot of synergies within the group for sure.
Yeah. I've done business with them. Like they're part of Saber.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So focusing back down to Bitwave in and of itself, and for the Topolon stuff, you did put out some of your own original games. I'm seeing here. Stuff like Cow Dash, Open Source Edition, Picto Party, but I think the one we want to talk about is Wonderling, or Wonderling DX. Has Galax, didn't you review that one?
Sorry?
Wonderling DX.
Yeah.
I think Alex might be muted.
Yeah, he might be coughing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wunderling DX. That was like that title has been around for like many years. The development started in 2017, I think, and was like released in 2020 as Wunderling. But then like we decided to like add more like levels and new challenges, and it ended up in Wunderling DX, which was like the final release in 2022.
And what was so deluxe about it?
Oh yeah, the deluxe is like a quite like, I wouldn't say a pun, but almost a pun, because like back in the days when Nintendo re-released like old classics on Game Boy, they added the DX mark. So like renaming the game to Wunderling DX was like a way for us to honor the history of games being republished, while it wasn't like a republishing, so to speak. But what's like new in it is like extra levels. There's like extra difficult levels. There's more like items that you can unlock to customize your character. So like it was a free update to just add more content to the fans.
Nifty.
Yeah.
And any plans to bring this to, say, the PlayStation or Xbox ecosystems?
Oh yeah, we would love to do that. There's no plans today because the team is occupied with other things, but it's not impossible for sure, since Wunderling was released on both PlayStation and Xbox. But we don't really know when we have the time to do it at the moment, but we would love to do it.
Yeah. I suppose that brings me to another question about Bitwave itself. How big is the company now? Like, how many people are working on games and all that stuff?
Oh yeah, we've been growing a lot like the last 2 years. When I started in 2021, we were like 5-6 people, if you're not like counting in the consultants. But today we're like almost 30 people. I think we were like 27 when I counted the last time.
Yeah, and there's quite a few that are not doing games directly. So I would say probably maybe 20 doing games.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. So like basically the company is there's a part that do like the publishing stuff, which I'm part of, and then we have Carl-Henrik working on Toaplan games, and then there's also like a bigger team that's working on like a yet unannounced project. So there's a lot of stuff going on at the company at the moment.
Yes, it does seem to be the case, and I suppose that's a good time as any to shift into, I suppose, more or less the main event of the interview here, and that is the Topolon catalog.
Yeah.
Right. I suppose before we get into the details here, I might have to explain to the audience and other people who might come across this later who Topolon was, because they're not a name even in like the retro scene that really comes to the forefront unless you are into a very specific type of shmups, but you've probably encountered them indirectly. The short version is they're the origin of the all your base are belong to us meme. The long version is they made a lot of really good arcade shmups back in the late 80s, early 90s, I'd say. And unfortunately, they couldn't keep up with the times, or whatever caused them to have the financial difficulties that caused them to go out of business. But they did make some really good games, like Truxton, Twin Cobra, Zero Wing, of course, Outzone, to just name a few. So with that out of the way, I suppose my first question here is, how did you get in touch with Tetsujin, or did they get in contact with you about bringing Toplan games to the modern era?
Actually, it was one of the founders of Toaplan managed to find the license for all these games, and he and Embracer worked together to reacquire the license. So Embracer owns Tatsujin, which in turn owns the Toaplan games. And the really cool thing is that Tatsujin consists of many of the employees of the original Toaplan. So when I'm working with them, I'm actually talking to the original developers. That's kind of amazing to me.
Yes, that is a nice bit of continuity that we don't see too often when it comes to the retro scene, due to one factor or another. But it is nice that they are there to help out in whatever capacity they can. And I suppose my next question here is, how does the communication process work between you and Tetsujin?
Yeah, so that's kind of tricky because we don't speak Japanese, and they don't really speak enough English to read like business emails. So we basically send them emails with questions about things that are these things okay to do, and they will use a translation program, write their answers, and then translate it back to English and send it back to us. So it's a little awkward, but we kind of found a style that gels, and we can ask about things in advance and make sure that they're okay with it.
Okay, and that hasn't led into to any miscommunications, because translation software can be imprecise.
Yeah, it's more like things get stalled because I guess someone doesn't know quite exactly how to answer something they don't understand. So I think it's more like slow down the process than cause any miscommunications.
Yes, I'd imagine that would be the case, though. On the other hand, I'd imagine that the communication process is much, much faster than it would have been back when, like Toaplan was alive.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to send faxes back and forth.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. So, what does Tetsujin help you with it, in terms of the games here?
It's mostly about making sure we don't misrepresent anything. That we don't use, like for instance, art that someone else made that we think they made in any presentation or communication. And like staying, we also recently worked out that they will help tell the Japanese audience when we release patches, for example.
Yeah, so I would say like in many different ways. For example, me I work like mostly with marketing, so like community stuff, with marketing stuff and all that. And I have like I'm always in contact with them like via emails. Like, so for example, when we released a patch yesterday, I sent the patch notes to get them translated into Japanese and so forth, and help them out with how they should present it and such. So they have knowledge that we don't have, and we have knowledge that they don't have. Yeah.
Okay. And I suppose, like, to the games themselves, are you emulating them, or are you like doing, or did you do like from the ground up conversions to the PC?
So in the base, there's like an emulation, and that's really straightforward. What I'm doing is I'm splitting it up into parts so that I can shave off extra frames. Right now it's running one less frame lag than the arcade machine does, but then that gets added to by the PC and monitor that I can't do anything about. So hopefully it evens out with the input lag. But that's something I started actually 25 years ago. So I made the first emulator for these games in the late 90s. And then it was ported to MAME from our emulator.
Wow, that's a bit of a connection there. Like, did they know about that connection?
No, but Embracer did. So that's my friend that asked me, like, hey, can you do this? And then I said, sure, I already did it, so how hard can it be?
Usually the answer to that is more than you expected.
Yes, I agree.
Was that the case in here?
Yeah, I think the major obstacle I hit was we started quality assurance a bit late. So at the end, I got kind of overwhelmed with the number of bugs I needed to fix. But I got all of them out of the way by working really hard for a while. So we've done the first patch now. So now we're kind of feeling like this is starting to feel really solid.
What did the first patch address?
Well, the primary thing was really the Zero Wing intro that we released yesterday. And it's our take on the classic Mega Drive intro. But I also had a few days just to go through what people had experienced that were bugs. So I could address some things that had been reported, and we keep looking at all the things that's been reported, evaluating what we can get done.
Yeah. There has been a lot of feedback, which we like. We really appreciate it. It's so nice to see all the passion and all the happiness from the community, because it's very dedicated folks who still play these games. And we, as Carl-Henrik mentioned, we have a list of stuff that we're going through. So it's been a hectic 2 weeks, but it's also been very fun.
I'd imagine, especially since there are, I'm trying like 4 or 5 games out now.
Yeah,
there's 4 games.
Yeah, we have a list of a total of 16 games that we're going to release in 4 batches. So it's a lot of work.
Yeah, but as I said, I have a lot of the work done up front, and it's more a question of just getting everything right.
Okay. And what's been the reaction from the community so far? Because the games have been out for about a month now, I believe.
Yeah, like 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
I would say like the reaction has been mixed. It has been mostly positive. There's been a bit negative as well, but that's to expected since, well, the games are old. They have their audience. People are really dedicated to them.
But the important thing is, even if it's negative, we take it to heart and try to see what we can do about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially since you're dealing with hardcore shmup fans. They're a breed unto themselves, let's say.
Especially I have some passion.
Yeah, I mean, we just love the passion. I rather have people angry at me than total silence, to be honest, because like anger is a sign of that someone really, really cares.
I suppose it's just, I've seen that anger go too far in some cases, though it sounds like that hasn't happened here.
I've seen some examples, but I also see other people jumping in and explaining like, yeah, you can't just add this in a few days. It's going to take more time to do this one thing. And I don't have to go out and say that because someone else already told them. So I think as long as it doesn't go overboard, I think we can handle it and get something out of it that improves the games.
Fair enough. Anyway, in terms of the games themselves, was there a particular reason that led you to pick the 4 titles that ended up in the first batch?
So it actually goes back to my first emulator. I was going to pick the first 4 games I made for that. And then I basically tweaked the list a little bit to make it kind of more of a mixed bag of games. So you don't get the experience from the first batch that it's all the same game with different skins. It's more like, here's one type of game, like Outzone is a running game type game. Twin Cobra is an older title and it's still super polished. Zeroing, obviously, because of the opportunity to make the intro. So it's all more to give like a mixed perspective of the games that they made. And then in future batches, we can be more specialized.
Yeah. I mean, did you pick Truxton because of its own mimetic properties?
I just love the game. It's like one of my favorite space shooting games. It feels a lot like maybe Flying Shark feels, but in space.
Right. And delving into the games themselves, what sort of emulator features or enhanced features or whatever you would call them can they find in these modernized games?
Yeah, so we're basically looking at Steam and saying, okay, you have leaderboards and achievements. So we added like bosses and some little fun things for achievements. And then you can have many leaderboards and there's no limits on them. So you have leaderboards for like how far you can get on one credit and playing without assistance features. Assistance features and another thing we're adding, like you can dodge bullets, for example. You can have a smaller hitbox. So you can kind of set up the game the way you like, and then your leaderboards and things reflect that.
Like one thing that I find very nice that we implemented quite late was leaderboard for the widescreen mode. So we announced the widescreen mode on social media.
So that's for Twin Cobra.
Oh yeah, sorry, for Twin Cobra. Yeah. And people were asking, is widescreen mode getting its own dedicated leaderboard? But we haven't really decided yet. So we put out a poll just to see what people wanted. And a lot of people wanted a separate leaderboard, so we made one.
Yeah, and another big thing that we have is practice mode. So you can basically pick anywhere in the game with any weapon, any upgrade, and just start playing for one life. In that case, you don't get achievements or leaderboard, but you can sort of experience parts of the game that you never reached when you maybe played it in the 80s.
Right, that can be a bit of a thorn when you're trying to learn games. It reminds me of some music advice I learned once. It's like even if you mess up on a song, you play the whole song, so you get all of the practice in. But are there save states in this?
Yeah, there's like F1 through F10. You can do a quick save and press Shift and F1, F10 to reload it. But you can also save with a file name, so you can share it.
Okay. And how do I assume, like, if you use save states, that will also negate leaderboards.
Yeah, that counts as an assist feature. So you would get on the assisted leaderboard instead of the no assist leaderboard.
Hmm. And is there rewind?
Yeah, you can rewind up to roughly 18 minutes, which is kind of overkill, but I didn't really see any reason why you wouldn't be allowed to do that. There's also a replay feature where you can start recording and play it back.
Mm-hmm. Is there the... I'm not sure what they call it, but like the game starts playing and you can jump in at any time mode?
Yeah, you can do that from replay.
Okay. And are there filters?
There's different screen modes. So basically, pretty advanced scanline mode with proper barreling and color separation. And then there's just scaling up pixels. There's scaling up pixels with 1 pixel interpolation, and you can also have a perfectly smooth scaling. And you can choose between pixel scale or filling up the screen.
Right. And you did mention this thing in passing, but I do want to address, because we are talking about shmups and old school shmups at that. So how do you account for input lag?
Do you mean for like, local machine? So
yeah.
Basically what I'm doing is I'm making sure I'm reading the controllers at the very last possible time. So that's during the emulation. And then I'm actually splitting up the frame. So I'm starting rendering right after all the sprites have been placed in the main code in the emulated games. And just basically making sure I'm rendering it on the PC as fast as possible. You can choose on Windows between true full screen, which can mess up your other windows a bit, or you can use a borderless window. So in the case of borderless window, you're bound to whatever update Windows does. So you have some control over the input lag too.
And is there support for like 120 hertz monitors?
Yeah, it supports whatever frame rates you choose. I've been playing a bit on 144, and that feels quite weird. I much prefer like proper 60 or 120, so you don't get like half frames.
Well, it's can you do the inverse? Like, is there any way to play this on an old school, I guess in this case, CRT monitor?
In theory, yes, but you need a graphics card for it. I think it should be possible to make one, but I don't know. I think all you need is to get the proper signal out.
I'm sure there's at least one person in the world who will be dedicated enough to try that, just because that seems to be the kind of thing people will do.
Like, yeah, no, I think there are like cards for like 15 kilohertz VGA, so that would be one option.
Mm-hmm. And does this do these games support Tate mode?
Yeah, I just call it rotate, so I don't do it backwards. Basically, if they are vertical to begin with, you can rotate the screen in 90-degree increments. So whatever monitor, however you can rotate your monitor, it should support it.
Yeah, very important. Now, have you gone into the games, so to speak, in order to change or modify anything, or are these like pure emulated recreations of the original arcade games?
Well, one thing I changed is I removed the need for inserting coins, because my thinking was it's hard to show people how to do that on a controller if they don't have a keyboard. I'm kind of thinking of maybe I should allow people to do that if they want to. So that's one of the things we're taking feedback about. But I haven't changed a lot in the games. It's more about me understanding how the game works, so that I can make all these extra features work by probing what's happening in the actual games.
Okay. And yeah, it is worth noting that these are the arcade versions of the games.
Yeah, exactly.
But some of these did make their way to consoles. Like, a good example here, Zeroing. Like the All Your Base Art Belong to Us is based off of the Mega Drive edition. And yes. I'm wondering, were there any plans? Are there any plans to see those versions in these packages, or some sort of release down the line?
Well, it's not something I'm particularly interested in, because those were ports of the original arcade, and I want this to be like its own port of the original arcade. But there's nothing really stopping, for example, Limited Run to join in on something specific for Mega Drive, because they would have the technology for that ready to go.
Yeah, but we don't have any plans at the moment. We're focusing on polishing the games we already released and release all of the others.
Yes.
Okay. And also along those lines, you've released these on Steam and GOG. Any plans to release these on the Epic Games Store?
I mean, it would be awesome, but currently no plans. But I mean, if we got the opportunity and the time, I think it could be doable.
Yeah.
And I suppose more saliently, any plans to bring these games to consoles?
That's the big dream. I think, as far as I know, some people need to talk to some people, and maybe I get to know something soon, but at the moment, I don't have any information.
No.
But I made it clear that it's super interesting for us.
Yeah, I mean, it would be awesome, but like since both M2 and now City Connection is publishing on Switch and PS4, right. We're sticking to PC for at least the moment.
PC?
Yeah, PC.
Yeah.
Didn't I say
PC4?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, PC4. No, we're sticking to PC at the moment, like Windows, Mac, Linux.
Right. Though I suppose I should also ask, this wouldn't be the optimal platform, but could you do a ports to mobile devices?
I don't think we would be allowed that license.
No, I don't think so either. So that's quite out of scope.
Fair enough. Anyway, so what's next in terms of the patching of Wave 1 here of the Topolan games?
Oh yeah, we got a big list. now we've been discussing like during the day what we should implement. Since the list is not finalized, it's really hard to say. But we would like probably have a look at Outzone. I mean, you could say some technical stuff I don't really understand here.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of requests to play a different version of Outzone, so that's one thing I'm looking into. There's also a lot of comments about the sound, and I have something to go on there, so that's one thing I'm gonna look into. But that's, yeah, these things can take a little bit of time, so those are some big things we're looking at.
Yeah, but our strategy at the moment is to try and fix all the small stuff first and foremost, so that the players doesn't have to wait for us to fix minor stuff, and then we'll take care of the big as well afterwards.
Yeah. So the plan is basically we spend the time to make sure these releases are great, and then we're gonna move on to the next 4 games.
Okay. Do you have any sort of time estimation on how much that's all going to take?
I think it's probably a few more weeks to get the big things done.
Yeah.
I think we're going to release another patch next week. And they're like, some of the things are hard for us to reproduce or understand. Like maybe we misunderstand what the request was. So we're going to spend more time trying to reproduce the reports.
Okay. And jumping ahead, have you finalized the next, what's going to be in the wave 2?
Yeah, but we're not talking about it yet.
No, we want to save something goodies for later.
Okay. I suppose I'm not sure if you can answer this question yet, but I am wondering, is like all of the Topolon catalog here going to be available, or is it just like the shooters?
We're starting with shoot 'em ups, and then we're gonna consider the rest if everything works out.
Yeah, I mean we have 16 shoot 'em ups.
Yeah.
to bring to PC, so that's a lot.
There's a couple of games that we're just not allowed to do because they contain content.
Yeah.
Right. No, because I'm personally hoping to see the Snow Brothers games.
Yeah, that's a really interesting game, both hardware-wise and gameplay-wise. So I'm hoping to get to work on that again.
Yeah, I mean, nothing is really impossible. But like as mentioned, we have 16 shoot 'em ups that we need to focus on. But it would be awesome to also look at the other stuff.
No doubt. I suppose another one I look forward to seeing, hopefully, is Truxton 2.
Yeah, of course. That's coming.
Yeah, I mean, we can more or less just we can confirm that all of the shoot 'em ups are coming, more or less.
Okay.
So yeah, Truxton 2 is on the list.
Yeah, it's just more the order of things that has yet to be announced.
Yes, exactly. Right. It takes some planning, and we want to spread out it as good as we can, considering that we just had the first release. But there's a lot of fun stuff coming up for sure.
Like that is understandable, though. I suppose we can switch gears here because there is another retro game that still needs to be talked about, though it has nothing to do with Topolon, and that is the Gimmick Special Edition. Gimmick Special Edition. You got listed here.
Cool.
Right. So another bit of backstory for those who might not know this, which is going to be most people, because Gimmick did not see release in most of the world. Gimmick is a late era NES platformer. I think like 92, 93 kind of deal. Kind of a puzzle platformer. Came out in Japan and Scandinavia for reasons that elude me, but is quite beloved and expensive to collect in its original NES package. But with that in mind, how did you come to work on Gimmick here?
Oh yeah, that's a super fascinating story, because when our CEO Niklas founded Retroid back in 2013, he founded because he wanted to make games like Gimmick. He's like a massive fan of Gimmick. He owns 2 copies, one Japanese and one Scandinavian. So after the acquisition, we got to know through contacts via Embracer that City Connection, a Japanese developer, were like working on bringing it back. So we teamed up with our free mode friends at Clear River Games. So they're taking care of the physical and we're taking care of the digital. So it's a dream come true for Niklas to be able to work on this title. And it was a must for us when we got to know that it was in the works.
And are you guys personally working on Gimmick, or is that another team?
Carl-Henrik is not working on Gimmick, but I am on the publishing side of things. Okay. So I'm taking care of the marketing of Gimmick, the PR stuff, but also the social media stuff.
Yeah. And are you working in conjunction with Sunsoft on this?
It's kind of weird because we're not developing. The developers are City Connection, so it's City Connection who's working with Sunsoft. But we're helping them out on the Western market. So we're sending suggestions to City Connection how we could pull things off, almost how we work with Tatsujin. So we're going to help them out with trailer stuff and social media assets and social media plans and that kind of things really, but also that we are helping them with representation on Western gaming events. So there's for example in the UK there's an event coming up now in April called OLL. So we're going to the UK with the game to show it on the show floor.
Okay. Gotta admit, yeah, that is maybe not a strange relationship, but it's definitely something that harkens back to the old school, localization and stuff of that nature.
Yeah. I mean, we're helping out localization wise is mostly storefronts. For Steam and the Switch, PS4, Xbox. But Gimmick makes sense for us because, as you said, it was only released in Japan and Scandinavia, and we are a Scandinavian company. Mm-hmm. So it feels it's close to heart. It is.
I'd imagine. And is this going to be the original version of Gimmick, or is this a modern remake of the game?
It is the original one. So it's no remake at all. It's going to be the original one, but with enhanced features. So there's going to be a time attack mode. There's going to be a gallery. There's going to be rewind. So basically quality of life features.
Okay. Sounds enticing. And What's being done on the physical side of things?
Oh, it's really hard for us to talk about the physical side since it's Clear River Games that is handling that. But it's coming physical for Switch and physical for PS4. That's what I can say today.
Fair enough. And is Limited Run helping out in any capacity with this project?
I can't really comment on that since we're not that heavily involved in the physical. Other than that, what Clear River Games is doing, like the physical in physical Switch and physical PS4.
Yeah, I suppose I should also ask if if one of your free mode or other Embracer stablemates are going to help you bring the Topolon games to physical in any sort of capacity.
I mean, it would be a dream. It would be so cool to do it. We haven't really discussed it internally, other than like between us at Bitwav dreaming about physicals.
Yeah. It's probably more likely to be finalized after the first 16 games, so they can make one box out of it.
Yeah.
It
would be a great thing.
That's what I was imagining. But yeah, hopefully that does happen. And let me see here. I think that's about it in terms of announced projects. You did mention an unannounced project. Is there anything you can shed light at this moment in time?
Not really. There's a bit of development left, but all I can say now is that it's looking really good. But no, we can't really comment.
No, the team is working really hard on it. They're mid-production.
Well, I wish them luck. And yeah, I think we've run through the gamut of questions that we can run through at this juncture. I'll see if my colleagues here have anything further for you.
I think
I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. Right. So I want to thank you both for being with us here today to talk about your games and your company. I like what I've seen so far, and hopefully you'll be able to join us again when like the next wave of Topolon games or the unannounced project are ready to be talked about.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
Okay, but in the meantime, the games are the Topolon Collection, Volume 1, let's call it, consisting of Zero Wing, Truxton, Twin Cobra, and trying to remember Outzone. They are available for $7.99 each. And is there any sort of bundle option there?
Yeah, there's a bundle for $19.99.
Okay. So be sure to pick that up today. So that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. As usual, be sure to tune in next time for our Sunday reviews. And until then, I shall wish you good gaming.